Hey, I know. I'll share screen. Hopefully everybody can see that. Everybody can see that. That's good. Sure. All right. Well, welcome everyone. It's great to have people on this call and making time just to share this presentation, this webinar I'm doing on stories that sell and crafting your signature story. Now, it should be about 30 to 45 minutes, and I'll go through kind of what I deem what stories are, what a good signature story is in terms of getting that attraction factor. People coming to you rather than you going outreach to them, because I've done both, and it's better actually. People attraction marketing is actually people are attracted by your story are much more qualified because you're building that trust up with your audience. So I will go next slide. So just a bit about me, kind of for who you don't know me. Been on the online space since 2018. Been down really a lot of rabbit holes to where I am at the minute. Websites, marketing agency, funnels, and then Feb 2001 changed everything to organic marketing because I think I was out of alignment. You've really got to enjoy what you're doing in this space. There's nothing worse than actually going down things that are not aligned with who you are or your values. So I switched to organic marketing and moved into the business coaching space, and I have my own one-on-one coaching program helping impact coaches, transformation coaches who really want to get their message out there and make a difference in the world, which we I think we're all in that space in terms of we want to really make an impact in what we do. So that's a bit about me. So what we'll learn today. So why stories are so powerful, and why I've doing this presentation, why my content strategy is built around stories more now than it was, and then why stories are to market your unique mechanism. And I'll go into kind of what your unique mechanism is. If you don't have one, I would highly recommend you actually have a unique mechanism around your services. We'll talk about actually what that is. And we'll go through an example of a signature story post example in terms of what I deem a kind of a post that can brings in your story, but actually drawing in your reader for them to actually take be affinity in terms of who you are and actually take action at the end of the day. At the end of the day, we're not just putting out stories just for the sake of stories or content. We're actually getting people interested in who we are and our services and how we can help those people. So just a bit on the power of stories. Now, this is probably, we all know what the power of stories. Our brains are literally wired for stories. They're, it goes back to, the prehistoric times whereby we're all around the campfire. We're all telling stories in terms of, what has happened. We literally are, we assimilate information better through stories than, any other means of communication. So stories can actually do the heavy lifting to sell your services. Now, this is, it seems obvious that, stories would be used, but a lot of people are still haven't kind of caught on to that fact, whereby they're still putting out, how-to content or educational content and there's no emotional connection with that. So through stories, you're building that emotional connection, and through that emotional connection, you can interweave your services in terms of kind of things that you sell, the pain points that your offer is solving. So stories can do the heavy lifting in selling. So another issue is stories engage the reader at an emotional level. That's That is really what we want to do. People, you've been told kind of, people buy an emotional, then justify with logic later on. And stories engage people at that emotional level. So that's why they're so powerful, and it allows information to flow fully and hold our attention. Now, attention is the greatest thing you can do online. Everybody is so much noise in the online space, and they're all vying for attention. So how do you stand out in that space? Through stories. Kind of, they engage your reader at an emotional level. They're building up that trust with you in terms of that, they're similar with you are, or kind of you're meeting them where they're at. So they're holding our attention. And then that's why logic alone in your content will always fall short. So if you're just putting out sort of logic, educational content or how-to content or tips and tricks content, you're really not going to, bond with your audience. You're not really going to kind of attract that audience. So stories is how you're going to, part of your content mix of how you're going to get that attraction with your audience. So that's really the power of stories. Now, I'm not probably telling anything anybody doesn't know, but it's amazing kind of people actually don't use stories more in their content and weaving their services and the pain points they're solving with their services into stories. So just to give you an example of a story. So, story one, kind of, estimate 11 million children in the USA suffer from food insecurity, means households do not have enough food on a regular basis for every family member to lead a healthy life. This can lead to serious health problems, poor performance in school, and emotional issues. Now, that's straight out of a textbook. Now, it's factual, but there's no, of me reading that, there's no affinity with that story. Whereby on story two, if I move over here, when Rebecca goes to school in the morning, her stomach is rumbling and she finds it hard to concentrate in class. Because she's so shy, she's reluctant to tell anybody their problems are due to the fact her family does not have enough to eat. She's ashamed and embarrassed. Even though she gets a big hug from her mother every day, she says, "I'm sorry, honey, this will get better, I promise." Imagine for a minute you did not have a food to eat each day, not to mention all the problems of nutrition and emotional deficiencies. No child should have to go through this. So which one are you more emotionally invested in? So it's kind of that story two is sort of creating that story around, the factual story one. So, if I was to put like a call to action or something, that story about kind of, if it was an NGO, I was asking for people to kind of subscribe to a newsletter, subscribe to actually, give some money towards, helping alleviate food poverty, that would be a much more attractive story to put out. So just to give you an example in terms of the two. Now, you're probably aware in terms of, advertisements and kind of in that space whereby they're using these type of stories to kind of get that emotional hook for people. Okay, so power of projection. Now this kind of builds in terms of what we've just mentioned. We insert ourselves into the story. Now, I was reading that. You're probably inserting maybe some yourself into the story about Rebecca and kind of what she was feeling, what her emotionals were in terms of how she was going to school hungry, that feeling of actually, that visceral feeling of not having enough to eat. So actually we subconsciously insert ourselves into stories. And then your prospect feels empathy towards you and creates trust. Now, this is the crucial part, I am feeling much more empathy about Rebecca in terms of how she's feeling. And I feel empathetic towards her. And I'm subconsciously building up that trust with that person. So if there was a call to action at the end of that, I would be more likely to actually, do something to alleviate that. And then trust is necessary for people to buy from you. This is a no-brainer. Kind of, everybody's going online, but there's a lot of people just telling. They're not showing, they're not demonstrating, they're not kind of using stories to build that trust with people. So trust is necessary for people to buy from you. This is the secret sauce of the online space. And then it becomes relevant to them, as people always are interested in themselves. Everybody's self-centered. Basically, everybody's looking out for themselves, but through the story, it becomes relevant to them. If you had in terms of that, if Rebecca, if someone that, had experienced that type of food poverty, they become relevant to them, and they become, that would be a self-interest to them, and they're always interested in themselves. So. And also changes attitudes, beliefs, values, knowledge, and behavior. So through that, maybe it was you're bringing up something new, you're kind of challenging belief, challenging norms, challenging, industry norms or values that people have, and then the behaviors of that. So again, stories are powerful for kind of those type of, you've got something in your services that you feel that's not talked about enough, or it's not, it's challenging kind of people's beliefs. And I would actually always do content. You always want to be at the edges in your content. You don't want vanilla content. There's far too much vanilla content out there. You want to be there in terms of challenging people's beliefs or values, or something you're seeing in the market, or seeing something that is you can provide your unique perspective on. So stories are actually very good for that as well. So, questions to ask. So these are sort of questions maybe you can talk about kind of your own stories. So, how's your product or service come to be, in terms of, stories around that? What's the backstory of your story? You've come to a certain point whereby you're a coach, you have a coaching service. What was the backstory up to that point? People are interested to know how you came to the place you're in now. What was going on in your life at the time? What made that change, that epiphany moment that you had, in terms of everything changed for you? And then what sort of problem you were trying to solve? Maybe there was something you were dealing with, and maybe you tried different things, didn't work. So what was that problem you were trying to solve? Is there a story behind that? People are interested, because then they self-identify with your story, because it's their story. Were you frustrated by other solutions that fell short? You tried different things and it just didn't work. And only became, you tried this one thing that did work. What were the circumstances around that? What led up to that point? Was the environment that you changed and made a difference? What hurdles had to have come in bringing this about? So those challenges that everybody has to go through, that, we go through a period of time, everybody's journey, entrepreneurial journey, coaching journey, comes to highs and lows. That is, people want to know about. That builds up that trust. Did you have doubters? Were you coming, your family and friends, or that they didn't support you? Did you have doubters you actually ever make it? So people, you can identify with that. And then how you overcome that? Maybe you had to change your whole environment. You had to change the people you surround yourself by to become the person you are now. So all of that is stories. There's so much. When people say, I don't have any content. Well, there's, you have masses of content in terms of where you are in the minute, your backstory, and how you've overcome problems, and how you and on all of the things that you can your ideal customer can identify with. Does that make sense? Good. So what does this mean? I mentioned at the start about unique mechanism. This goes back. You want your story to sort of hang around something. You're just saying stories for the sake of writing stories. Kind of unique mechanism. This goes back into your offer. When I'm working with people, I spend a lot of time working in terms of that offer side of things. And unique mechanism around your services. Why are you different from everybody else? And it doesn't have to be revolutionary, but just the twist maybe that you have that has a unique mechanism that you can describe in a story, your story, that why you are different. That this can literally make the difference between being zero or thousands of dollars. It's because there's so much saturation in the market. Everybody is saying a lot, so much of the same. So if you want to stand out, I would say identify a unique mechanism whereby you can showcase your services. And I'll just go through kind of some examples here. You truly have a unique mechanism, like a special recipe. Now, this is, you've come up with this revolutionary idea or new method of achieving a result for your client, like a special recipe or some kind of thing. Now, this is, this is not the norm. Certainly a lot of people coming into the coaching space don't, they're mirroring a lot of what other people are doing. They're, but maybe you have a particular thing that is unique to you. Second is you have a service, but there's part of that nobody else is talking about. I mentioned kind of unique brewing practice. This is sort of, I think it was a beer or whatever had a unique way of making it. So it's part of that process that was unique. So if you have a service and maybe there's some part of it that no one else is talking about that you want to sort of craft your unique, highlight a part of that sets you apart. And thirdly, is you have a mechanism that's transformative. So this is more, the keto diet, whereby basting, feasting, fasting is sort of getting some kind of uniqueness around that transformative process. This is what usually I do with people, is we come up with a unique selling proposition, some kind of hook or something around your services. You started turning something ordinary into the extraordinary. It's just amplifying that transformative process that you're helping people with, that they can sort of hook around, that they feel, yeah, that's exactly what I want. As I said, you should have a unique mechanism. I think in the online space at the minute, if you're just listing a generic list of services, you're going to get crickets in terms of a lot of the content, a lot of things that you're putting out, because you're not, if you're an NLP coach, or a lot of when you're just saying I do X, Y, and Z, in terms of timeline therapy or some kind of other, that a lot of people are just saying the same thing. It doesn't mean anything anymore. You've got to create some curiosity, I would say, around your services, some kind of mechanism that that is yours. So what does this all have to do with stories? Well, there's two parts to the unique mechanism. So that the stories can be a unique mechanism behind the problem your prospect faces, explain why your prospect has not achieved their desired goal. So you're kind of explaining why this mechanism can help them. And then the unique mechanism behind the solution you offer, explain how your prospect succeed using the service. So you kind of say, well, you were doing this, but with this mechanism I can get you that can get you that solution much more quicker, or kind of more efficiently, or more comprehensively, explaining kind of your mechanism around that. Also, if your mechanism behind your solution is something your prospect is close to succeeding, so if someone is just maybe something they're missing, showing them this missing piece puts you in a great position to sell. So it's kind of somebody is in the fitness space, for instance. So they're tried a lot of different fitness programs, but none of them have worked. but you have a particular, method of accountability, whatever, to make sure they actually achieve that. And they're just missing that one piece in terms of that accountability piece. That puts you in a great position. Say, well, all of these other programs, you haven't got the solution. Well, mine solution is actually I'm keeping you accountable through my, particular app I have, or particular meal plan that will make sure that you consistently lose weight over the period of time. So creating that mechanism, so maybe there's a missing piece that puts you in a great position to sell. Right, Heaven and Hell Island. So this is going to go in you. The mechanism is sort of people are in pain. Basically, it's going from point A, point B in terms of the story, your picture, stories that you are putting out in your content is always about moving people from a painful place to a much more, pleasurable place. And your services are the more direct route to get to that point, through all these sharks in this infested waters. You're that straight line between the two. So you have to paint the picture of what their life looks like, now in terms of before there's your services, that's Hell Island. And then paint the picture of what their life could be after it in Heaven Island. So your stories in terms of kind of that, the problems they're dealing with, why they're stuck, why it's not moving for them, and why you are the solution, through your mechanism. And then what's their life going to look like once they get to that Heaven Island, and why it's so important, what's their life going to be, what their relationships are going to be better, how their life is going to be so much better in terms of once they experience your coaching services. So always have in your mind in terms of that transformation that you are helping your client with, because at the end of the day, as a coach, you're in the transformation business. You're not in the information business. You're transforming lives. So it's always, your content should always be focused on transformation. Okay, so signature story. So we've gone through kind of what story is, unique mechanism, taking them on a journey. So the stories, story about the pain they felt by your prospect. So that's the Heaven Island, the Hell Island part. Story about the solution of your services. So that's more on the Heaven Island. And the story about your successful customers in terms of how they've achieved that. Story about why conventional solutions in your market aren't good and are not working. So why kind of, people are trying different things and they're just not working. This can, you can weave in your mechanism within that, that how did you've seen something in the market that's not working, and why, why it isn't. And a story about one of the myths in your market, it's calling people out in the industry. Maybe there's some things that people are doing that is just, that is just plain wrong, and kind of that, you're calling them out on that. The story about how it feels to overcome the problem. So kind of gather emotional response again. You want to be engendering that emotional connection. Yeah, before and after story, very good in the fitness industry. Story about people were before and after. Your coaching services, and parable about the essential points, what you're trying to solve. So kind of weave it within, other story, client story, on the essential points of how you're going to try and solve that problem. So does anybody use those type of stories in their content? Bree, Harry, anybody? No?
Yeah, I do. Yep. From time to time. Yeah.
Excellent.
I want to do more. Like, that feels more natural to me. I story tell when I talk to people.
Yeah.
So I want to feel natural and turn the storytelling into the way I communicate with people online.
Yeah. It's a much more natural way of content creation, I find. Because you're by very fact that you're probably a previous version of your client. So you've probably got all of that content already in you, really kind of, and it just way kind of getting that out in terms of how you're feeling, how that's felt, but how you overcame that to a new reality and the benefit you came from that new reality. And if you want that new reality, hey, I've got this masterclass next week. We're going to be talking more about it. So you're just taking them on a journey, to a new reality.
Yeah, I was in sales, or I've been in sales pretty much all my life. And the way I started out, because I didn't have any formal education, sales education at that time. I mean, I was about 20 years, of age at the time, when I started out. And so I didn't know anything, but I was able to tell stories, and I moved on with that. So I can, really respect the idea of a story, and I use them still very much.
Okay, no, that's good. It's part of your content mix. Stories in terms of how your own story, client story of people that are in your, that you've come across, or they're powerful connection stories. Now, in terms of challenging beliefs, belief shifting is another thing about kind of people who started off with kind of a misplaced belief. Through your services, they've changed their beliefs to kind of to where they've solved that problem they're dealing with. So those type of stories are really powerful. Okay, next one. Okay, signature story. So this is sort of an example of a signature story. It goes over a couple of slides. So it's the hook. The headline is I always say kind of headlines are the main part of any content. If you haven't got a good headline, it's difficult for other people to sort of continue to read. So this particular one, and I've just crafted this, isn't particularly kind of specific to my services, but it has to be a hook. There has to be something to keep the reader engaged. So I've just put, it's not your fault. So kind of creating curiosity about, well, what's it not my fault? So just think about your headline in terms of getting that hook for people to actually read your content. So, and then I'm going straight into a story, or kind of your story. 10 years ago, I wasn't living up to my potential. I spent a decade at college and small fortune getting 2 degrees. I took pride in getting good grades, but in the real world, I felt another failure. So we're digging deep in terms of kind of being vulnerable about ourselves. As far as my personal fulfillment went, the universe was giving me a big fat F. So I felt a failure. Although I wasn't a slacker, I still felt guilty for not living up to my expectations that I placed upon myself. After a lot of soul searching, here's what I found. Acquiring knowledge helps pass exams, but it did not mean squat and succeeding in life. So, I'm a sort of self-reflection about kind of, where I was in terms of passing exams is not, it's going to mean a success in life. So, I'm setting the scene for kind of what comes on. And I certainly did not prepare for starting a business, which is really what I wanted to do. So that's the epiphany moment. Nobody was teaching how to become an entrepreneur. So I was calling out all of this education, and actually there was nobody actually teaching me how I wanted to start a business or not. So it's kind of challenging, kind of conventional thinking. So, nobody was teaching how to become. So challenge conventional thinking. Nobody was teaching how to become an entrepreneur. And then said the dirty little secret is that most colleges and universities are producing graduates to fill jobs that may already be redundant. So it's kind of like I'm bringing new information about kind of what the current reality is. Students spending thousands on degrees and in debt for years for jobs that will soon be done by AI. We all know about the progression of artificial intelligence and a lot on how things are changing rapidly. So trading your time for money or working harder is not the answer in today's labor market. You truly are expendable. So kind of calling people, calling people out in that the traditional 9 to 5 is disappearing in today's labor market. So, and then they call that's what opposite are taught by my parents. But in today's world, people are becoming a commodity. If your employer find a cheaper options, they will go there. And it's not a first world country. So they're saying, you know, we're being, no, everybody is expendable, and, you know, the value people place on people is not the same anymore. So what's the answer? So, you know, have a high income online skill that people want. So I'll transition from saying, yeah, well, this is, you know, this is not a good situation, you know, so what's the answer? You know, I'm leading them to something that's in my services, and kind of how there is alternatives. The good news is already have the key to acquiring high income skills. So if you're feeling down about your prospects in an ever-changing marketplace, it's not your fault. So I'm tying it back to the headline. It's not your fault. The education system is broken. The ivory towers are collapsing. The only education that matter will be the one in the real world. So if you want to leave the matrix, or don't want to join it in the first place, get hold of and this is the unique mechanism I talked about, get hold of a sell what you know blueprint. It could be anything in terms of your own services, a blueprint, how to turn your existing skills into high income online skills. Drop hashtag sell what you know below, and I'll send it to you. So this is, you know, you're setting the scene, you're setting your own epiphany, kind of in terms of where you were, and moving the prospect to kind of, it's not their fault. You know, the whole environment and kind of the old working environment is changing, but you have an answer to that, and get hold of my blueprint. So that's what I'm talking about. Having a mechanism around that, whereby you can, you know, tell them, well, I have the answer for you. Does that make sense? Is it
absolutely, yeah.
Does anybody using this type of content? Bree, kind of, Harry, anyone?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I have used like a quite detailed backstory.
Okay.
Sort of like this, you know, like where I was.
Okay. Do you pivot to sort of, you know, to your services, to kind of pivot to sort of like, you know, get them to take action, or is it just purely story?
I've often used, where I've used them more in the past is when I was doing a webinar or something.
Yeah.
And then moving them to the call to action. But so, yeah, it's sort of one of those where I want to use these, but I also just want to use more just general storytelling to get points across.
Okay.
As well. Just that, you know, just, again, it's just a different way to connect with people.
Yeah, well, it's, you know, it's sort of 80-20 rule, you know, you give kind of story, you know, I usually do like 2 call to actions a week. You kind of giving value about a particular theme, maybe a week. You can talk about stories around, you know, a particular theme in your coaching, and then talk about that. And then, hey, if you find this, I'm running a, you know, masterclass, workshop, whatever, over my group in, you know, next Tuesday on this topic. Drop hashtag, you know, next Tuesday or whatever, do you know, if you want to be in. So you're kind of moving people to take action. It's, again, the story should be there for a reason. You know, content is there for a reason. It's not, a lot of people are just putting out content just to feel good about themselves. It should be, content should be there, and your story-based content should be there for moving people along the customer journey, for them to, you know, eventually work with you. You know, you're building up those the points of contact in terms of your stories, and that trust building to kind of move them into you know, potential client. So any comments on that? Anyone else? No. Everybody's very quiet. Sandra, Kim, anyone? Anne?
I do a lot of it in my video.
Video, okay.
I do more video. I don't know whether I don't know. I do more reels.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's, you know, reels work. You know, this is, you know, I'm more attracted to the written word, but certainly video is certainly, yeah, you know, you get a point across. It's a much more shorter time frame.
Yeah, it's just that I'm not a very good speller, so that's why.
Well, actually, and grammar has nothing to do with it. you know, in terms of people are not looking in terms of the structure of sentences. And I've had dreadful kind of copy going out, but at no point did anybody say, you know, on the third line, you didn't spell this right, sort of thing. So it's more about the content in terms of did it meet people where they're at? Did it move people? Did you have a, you know, was it trust? You know, did it actually get people to take action at the end of the day?
Thanks.
Okay, no worries. Okay, so just in summary, so use stories in your content. So can't say enough, use stories in your content. Your story, client story, transformational story, people who you have, you know, they're dealing with problems, your problem and solution aware content, people that are dealing with problems that, you know, your services can solve. You want to be putting all of that in your content, and, you know, giving value, giving, you know, testimonials, showing stories that, you know, you have helped them get that transformation they want. And then have a unique mechanism to create a point of difference. Now I can't stress enough about unique mechanism, or how I help people kind of craft that unique mechanism. It's just there's so much noise out there. If you're just listing services, if you're just listing kind of, you know, what you do, there's no point of difference. You're just like everyone else. You're competing, and you'll vastly be competing on price, not value. That's what I mean. Once you create a mechanism, you're seeing, you know, inferred that you're an expert. You have to infer in terms of you've created something unique about you. So there's a value. You're actually, you're bringing value to the marketplace, as opposed to just listing services. You know, people just doing hourly rates for readings or kind of that sort of thing. You want to create a mechanism whereby you're seen as something unique. Be clear on the transformation you're getting your client. Seems obvious, but that heaven and island, whereby your story is actually that transformation story. Your story should be in that bridge going from Hell Island to Heaven Island. So you should always be talking about that, and problem and solution aware content that is talking, you know, to your potential client. And introduce your unique mechanism with your signature story post. Kind of that signature story post, I would put in that post. I usually, you know, the first post when people are coming to your profile, if it's going to using your Facebook profile, you know, they're coming to check you out, have that post pinned at the top of your profile. That it's who you are, why you know, why you're doing what you're doing, and the journey that you've come to that. And, you know, you could put a CTA at the end of it in terms of that, or may just use story. So it's just building up that trust. So when people are reading that, they say, okay, yeah, I identify with that story, and they'll begin to read other of your content as well. And then, you know, ask people to, you know, take action, take action. So, you know, at the end of the day, we're doing all of the story-based content for people to take action. We're not, you know, putting content out for the sake of putting content out. I see so many people just putting out sort of content, and there's no call to action whatsoever. People are not, you know, consuming it, and they're losing potential people, you know, to take the next step. So you're doing stories, ask people to take action. Either move them into your group in terms of holding some kind of masterclass or an event, or a direct call to action in terms of, I've got this thing, I think you'd be interested in, hashtag below, whatever. But please just, you know, ask people to take action, because people are not mind readers. They can't sort of think kind of that, you know. So ask them specifically what you want them to do. Okay, so that's really kind of, I didn't want to go deep in terms of stories and that, but does that make sense to people? Did people get value from that?
Yes.
Yes, indeed, yeah.
Okay, well, I would the story unique mechanism, I kind of come back to that in terms of hanging your stories off something. So if you haven't got a unique mechanism around your services, I would certainly, focus on that. And that's part of your offer creation side of thing. And I might do another webinar on offer creation, or actually creating that unique mechanism, because your story is much more powerful if you're linking it to something that you have, that you've got some intellectual property over, that you're creating for your clients. Okay. All right. So next is, so if anybody's interested kind of in a problem with defining your unique mechanism, I can certainly help you to craft your mechanism, craft your signature story and story-based content plan if you're interested. So anybody's interested, drop #signature below, or watching this live, happy to kind of get on a call and see what we can do. Because having done this for over 12 months, and people coming to me with a list of services, and I haven't got something dialed in that's unique to them, is one of the major problems in terms of being heard in the marketplace. And then once you kind of have that dialed in, your content and story content becomes much easier, because you can talk about why you have that, why your mechanism is different, why you so different. And then that leads in more curiosity for people actually to raise their hand on your stories, on your content. So anybody's interested in that, just drop #signature in the chat, in on live, people watching it live, and happy to have a discussion about that. All right. So thank you, everyone, in terms of that and turning out, and hoping you got value from this. And I'll see you on the next webinar. I'll be doing these every 2 weeks, and with different aspects of that, and I hope to see everybody back.
Sure, absolutely. I'll see you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Bree. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.